Hey scholars, so last week you started creating your sentences for us to make our paragraph about beaks. And remember, we're talking about an informative paragraph, so we're giving our readers information. So we had our focus statement you created, you had your first detail you created a second detail, and you created a conclusion. But when you're reading, you don't have the sentences all split apart into 4 different pages. They're all put together for one paragraph. So what we're going to focus on today, tomorrow, and it's due for Wednesday, is putting our sentences together into our one full paragraph. So you have plenty of time to take your time. So I'm going to show you what I expect to see you do it. So again, when we have a paragraph, we start with our focus statement. So all I'm going to do is see that I put beaks help birds survive. So that's how I'm going to start my paragraph. And remember, when you're writing a paragraph, you indent a little bit. So I'm not going to start right at the edge. I'm going to move in. So again, my focus statement said beaks help birds survive. And notice when I got to the next line, I started then all the way at the end. Only my first line is indented. So I have beaks help birds survive. So that's my first part. Now our next sentences are dealing with our detail number 1. So now I'm going to go back and see what I wrote for here. So I have some birds have hooked beaks. These beaks help tear scales and flesh so the birds can eat. So we have a lot more to write this time. So I'm going to go back. So first I need to write some birds have hooked beaks. And I'm going to just start writing it right next to where I left off. So here's my period. Now I'm ready to start my next sentence right next to it. So it said some birds have hooked beaks. And I'm going to put my period because that's the end of the first part. So that's the first part of detail 1. Now I need to go back to see what I need to write next. So now I have these beaks help tear scales and flesh so the birds can eat. So now I have my next sentence for my detail 1 to write. So again, I'm starting right where I left off after this period. So these beaks help tear scales and flesh so the birds can eat. Alright, so now I finished detail 1. So now I'm ready to move to see what I wrote for detail 2. So here it says for my detail 2, I put some birds have uneven beaks. These beaks help trap fish. So I'm going to take it one step at a time. So I'm going to look at my first part. Some birds have uneven beaks. So that's what I'm going to write next. Some birds have uneven beaks. Right, now I'm not finished yet with detail 2. I have my next sentence. These beaks help trap fish. So here we go. I don't have any more space over here to put these. So I'm going to move down here. So these beaks help trap fish. All right, so I have my focus statement. I did detail 1. We just finished our detail 2. Now we're ready to copy what we wrote for our conclusion. So for my conclusion, I put beaks help birds survive by tearing scales and flesh and by trapping fish. So now I need to copy my last sentence for my paragraph. So here we go. I'm going to go, see, I don't have space here, so I need to move down here. So we have beaks, help birds survive by tearing scales and flesh and by trapping fish. All right, so I did the first step. I copied all of my sentences that I created so far. So all we did so far was we looked. I had my focus statement. I copied that first. Then I did my detail 1. Then I did my detail 2. And then I copied my conclusion. So I put all 4 of these together to make my one paragraph. So that's the first step. Now, I need to make sure that this is my best work because this is what I'm going to hand in. I want it to make sure it's at high quality. So I have to think about what does it need to look like if it's my best work. So I know I need to make sure that my sentences, all of them start with a capital letter. I also need to make sure I have my punctuation. And since I'm telling stuff and I'm not asking any questions, I have periods at the end of each of my sentence. Then I want to make sure, do I have spaces between the words? Are my words written nice and neat? So let's take a look. So I made sure when I did the first line, I did my indent for my paragraph. So my first sentence is, beaks help birds survive. So I'm going to look. I have my capital letter, I have my period, and I did spaces between each word. I'm going to check the next sentence. Some birds have hooked beaks. Again, I have my capital letter and my period. And I'm going to go through the whole paragraph to make sure each sentence is written correctly. Then I want to make sure that my letters are written neatly. So at the top, it looks like I started pretty nice and neat. But down at the bottom, it looks a little sloppy. So maybe I want to actually go back and rewrite that because, again, I want to hand in my best work to make sure I get the best grade that I can. So again, you're going to, after you put all of your sentences together, the focus, the details, and your conclusion, you need to go back and check, make sure, is it written correctly? Do I have my spaces, my capital letters, and my punctuation? And is it written nice and neat?